episode of my podcast and YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. If you are new here, my name is jasmineclbaker, and I am your host for this dope podcast and YouTube. So, today we're talking about again, I say this for every episode. I'm like, this one is really important, but they're all really important. But this one I've definitely experienced in a good amount of my 20s, if not all of my 20s. I would say I went through this topic that we're going to be talking about. So my heart behind it is to help, because I'm a girl, so I'm going to say girls. Some girls who are maybe experiencing it and, get some confidence and some tips on how to navigate through it. Because sometimes being you is hard. It can be difficult. It can be discouraging. It can be frustrating. And I mean this in various different aspects, not just particularly one, because I know we wear various hats. We have varying roles, different things like that. So sometimes being you is hard, but sis, be you and they'll adjust. So I think that is what we're going to call this episode. Be you, sis, and they'll adjust. So what do I mean by that? So I went through a phase. I will call myself a recovering people pleaser. I'm not fully on the other side of it, but I'm definitely a lot further along now than I was in my 20s. I'm 32 now. So throughout my 20s, and it started when I was a kid. So childhood kind of groomed me for it, and then my 20s was kind of really when I manifested it. I went through this thing about where people's opinions of me and who they thought I was or who they thought I should be mattered to me more than who I wanted to be or who I knew I was or who I wanted the world to know me as. So what that looked like is like I said, this started in elementary school. I started doing and being and liking what I thought other people wanted me to like or who other people thought I should be, for the sake of being liked and accepted and having friends and stuff, because nobody wants to be the odd one out, the one that's left out, the one that, doesn't have friends. Nobody wants to be that person. So how this all started was in elementary school, I got accepted into my school's gifted and talented program. And so that meant from after third grade, when I went into fourth grade, I was in the gifted and talented program, and I was in that program from fourth through sixth grade. So I was really excited about it. My mom, when I got the invitation to apply, my mom was like, "Are you sure that's what you want to do?" And I was like, it's like a no-brainer to me. I don't understand, what I need to think about. And she was like, well, take the summer to think about it, and if you really want to do it, we'll do it. And I'm like, I don't need to think about it. I really want to do this. And at the time, I didn't understand what her concern was for me entering into the program, but I started to understand it as the years went on. So fourth grade starts, and at my elementary school, how they did it was the first day of school, everybody stood outside and teachers would name off their list, and that's how you knew what class you're going to be in. But if you were in the gifted and talented program, it was only one teacher for fourth grade, one teacher for fifth grade, one teacher for sixth grade. So we already knew who our teacher was. We just didn't know what other children were going to be in that class. So when I got into my class, none of my friends that I had first, second, and third grade were in my class. So I had to meet all new people. Yeah, all new people. So when it came to recess, I'm getting outside for recess, and I'm excited to see my other friends, and none of my friends wanted to be my friend anymore. And at that point, all of my friends were Black. And so when I'm like thinking we about to have fun at recess, they're like, nah. Basically, they didn't want to be my friends anymore because I was in the gifted and talented program, and somehow intelligence equated to acting white, which is absurd, right? I would like to say we've kind of evolved from this mentality, but I'm not completely confident to say that that's the case. So back then, though, it definitely was, and so they were like, we're not rocking with you no more because you think you white, you think you better, you think you smart, you think all this type of stuff. So I had to make all new friends in my class, and so that kind of led into me wanting to be accepted, and so I started listening to and liking things that people in my class like so that I could have friends, because there were a few black girls in the class, but again, they for some reason didn't want to be my friend. And I'm like, what in the world? I'm thinking, we're all black girls, we got this in common, we finna be tight, and that was not the case. So that only left, the white girls in the class. And so I didn't know how to I didn't know what they liked. I didn't know anything, because previous to this, all of my friends, minus one, all of my close friends had been black girls. So I started listening to, liking things, doing things that they liked, because when I got invited to sleepovers and stuff, I had no reference for what they were talking about. I didn't know Lord of the Rings. I didn't know none of that stuff. I didn't know Blink 182. I didn't know any of the music they listened to. I didn't know anything. So I had to learn that in order to feel like I was a part and be able to contribute to conversations, things like that. So that kind of led me throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, all the way up till in my 20s. But now as an adult, a young adult, how that shaped me was now I'm in the real world, right? And I'm having to make decisions and be in these different spaces, and I'm having to really contribute. But again, I still have this people pleasing mentality where I want you to like me. I want to fit in. I want to live up to the standard or the ideal of who you have of me. And so that led to me, again, continuing to be this person that I might not necessarily have been comfortable with or wanted to be, but it was who other people wanted me to be. And as long as I was who other people wanted me to be, I kind of knew I was guaranteed to be fit into certain spaces. It worked for a while. I would say it worked until it didn't work. And when it started to not work, I started to feel a lot of internal turmoil. There was an internal battle going on, because on the outside, I was who people thought I should be, but on the inside, I was starting to become miserable. There were things inside of me that I wanted to do, I wanted to be, I wanted to express, but I couldn't, because I was afraid of how it would be perceived. At this point in my 20s, I think what really was a turning point was in my 20s is when I first started to become active in ministry. So at the church that I was at, that's when I first started singing on the praise team, and I was on the altar and evangelism team. I was, doing that at the state level. I was doing it with the district level. I was starting to, minister and preach and do different things like that. And so there was this image of the ideal minister that I knew I was supposed to be, to fit in these spaces, but it did not completely align with my true self and my true desires, my true likes, my true wants, things like that. And so I started to have this, like I said, this real battle between living up to people's standards of me and me being true to who I am and who I know God called me to be. And so it really caused a lot of friction in a lot of relationships, especially when it came to dating. That was something I really had to, and still am navigating through what that looks like, because, yeah, so it is what it is. I had learned that there are certain expectations that some young men in church have for their potential spouses. And so I kind of played the role until I couldn't play the role anymore. And it's not to say that, I'm this super independent black woman who don't need a man. That's not me at all. Let me get married and not have to do certain things that I have to do now. I will gladly allow my husband to do whatever it is that he need to do, and I'm like, yeah, babe, do what, I'm looking forward to that. But um also at the same time, I'm not one to be completely silent and just let things happen that I know probably necessarily shouldn't happen. And so learning that balance of when to speak up and when to kind of let the man do what he was supposed to do, I think I would speak up more than they would like for me to. And so that was like, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to shrink back a little bit, like that fine line of trying to fit into this box or this mold that I thought I had to fit into in order to be able to do what I know I'm supposed to do. So at the point of where I'm just like, I could do it until I couldn't do it, I really made a lot of changes. I literally moved. If you've been with me for any amount of time, I moved from Michigan to Atlanta, and how pivotal role Atlanta played into who I am today. It really did, because when I moved from where I was, I wasn't around people who knew me as the person that I was, trying to fit the mold. When I moved to Atlanta, I introduced people knew me as who I said I was, not who they thought I should be. And so it gave me an opportunity to really figure out who Jasmine was, what Jasmine liked, what Jasmine didn't like, who God called her to be, what it was supposed to, it really gave me a chance to discover who I am as myself. But like I said at the beginning, sometimes being you is hard. And I mentioned how hard it is in dating. So I'm going to kind of go into it a little bit in dating, but I think I want to do a whole separate episode just talking about dating and my experience with that and what it looks like and different things like that. But just tying it into be you, sis, they'll adjust. When it comes to dating and when it comes to relationships and what you're looking for in a potential husband, everybody has a different set of standards, expectations, preferences, deal breakers, right? Nobody has the exact same list when it comes to that. Now, it's not to say anybody's expectations, standards, boundaries are better or worse. It's just whatever yours are, those are authentically yours. Where I came from, there was a perception that there was a rule of what had to be on your list of deal breakers, preferences, standards, boundaries, and all of what was on there was, like I said, the rule, and anything outside of that deemed you less worthy, less holy, less whatever. And so when my list started to shift, one, that caused a little tension, and then two, when things on my list were not necessarily conventional, and I'm introducing my things on there, not like, well, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, not necessarily that, but just in conversation and different men getting to know me, when it would come up like, well, this is one of my standards, a lot of them try to talk me down off of it. And this is where it gets hard, because like I said, I'm 32 and I'm still single. Did I think that at 32 I would still be single? No, not at all. In my mind, I would have been married maybe by 26, 27, 28 at the latest. In hindsight, I'm very thankful that I am still single at 32, just because, like I said, I've grown into this person now, and I've had the space and the liberty to do that outside of a person, because everybody evolves. And anybody I've talked to who've been married for any plus years, they say that they're continuing to learn their spouse, because you're not the same person the day you got married as you are 5 years into the marriage, 10 years into the marriage. So you're always growing and evolving. But I've had the freedom to grow and evolve without having to explain my growth and evolution to somebody else who said I do based on who I was at that moment. But at the same time, even though I have been single during this time, it has caused some friction in friendships. And this is where I get to sometimes being you is hard. So at the moment where I got to the point where I started to be comfortable enough to say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I really like. This is what I don't like. I know, previous years, this is what I've been doing. Explaining I was doing that out of whatever. But however, moving forward, this is who I am now. Some relationships were able to withstand that. Some were not at all. And some had to adjust. And in all three instances, there was a lot of grief that I had to go through. We know that typically I work in the space of loss and grief. So everything has like an underlying how grief ties into our everyday situations that we might not necessarily think of from the beginning. So, and this is one of them. How me deciding to be my authentic self caused some shifting in relationships. And these are relationships that I didn't intend to ever end. They're the ones that I went into or developed at some point, like, oh, we're going to be in each other's weddings. We're going to be each other's children's godmothers. We're going to be there for, whatever. When we grow old, like, we're going to be in nursing homes, wheelchairs, all of that, still being as close like sisters when we were, previous to my evolution. So when I started to, kind of be confident in who I am, like I said, some relationships did not withstand, meaning we're not talking at all. We're no longer friends at all. That was one outcome. Another outcome is we still talk, but not the same. And it's two. I guess it's the same. It's the same instance, but different levels. So one is, we kind of check in from every now and then, like birthday. If we see something on social media, we'll check in. But I don't get the information at the onset from a phone call like I would have previous. It's like, oh, I saw this happen. Let me call you and see if you're okay, type situation. The other ones have sustained, but they have shifted, meaning we still talk. I still consider these people friends, but not as there is not as close of a bond as there was before, just because we've split off from having different interests, different directions that we've gone in. Neither one bad or good or worse or better, just different. And so, when we're adults, maintaining friendships is a little bit difficult than when you're in school or even in college, because these are friendships that I developed while I was in college. And so when you graduate and you enter the real world and you start to develop who you are as an adult, relationships shift. And I was not prepared for any of my relationships to shift. The naive girl that I can be sometimes, just was like, oh, we finna rock until we can't walk no more, and we rolling in these wheelchairs. And so when that wasn't the case, then, like I said, being me became hard. When it came to dating, going back to that, and me presenting what I will do, what I won't do, what I won't accept, what I will accept, and having different men try to talk me down or make me feel like I was doing too much, or, oh, nobody's going to be okay with that. Just different conversations about what my expectations and standards were. It did come to a point of where it became hard. It became frustrating. It became very, very, very frustrating, to the point where sometimes I would be like, God, can I just do something different? Like, I know this is the conversation that you and I have had. I'm not saying that what I'm saying is a standard or a rule or is a salvation issue. I'm just saying this is something that he and I talked about and something that he communicated for me to have personally. But it got hard, and I'm like, I don't want to have to do this anymore. Like, it was cool, at 22, but at 30, it's not looking the same. Can we reevaluate some of the stuff we've talked about? Because it caused some loneliness. It caused a lot, like I said, of frustration. And so I had to learn throughout all of this that it was natural for me to not always want to be me, or not always want to walk the path that my life is set to be on. Because I understand that some things that I do or I have to do are very difficult. They don't always make sense, but that's just who I am. And so I say be you, sis, they'll adjust. That's really the case. And adjusting could either be, okay, cool, no problem, girl, we cool, like nothing's changed, or adjusting could be, I'm not okay with that. We're gonna have to part ways. Either situation, they have adjusted. It's just if you've adjusted to fit my life how it is now, or you have adjusted outside of my life. Either situation is fine, but in the midst of all that, I'm still going to be me. I'm not going to apologize for being me. You just need to decide whether or not you're going to continue to be a part of my life based off of information I'm giving you right now. So it took me probably 10, 11 years to get to this place where I know that there is no quote unquote box or picture or standard of who I have to be in order to do what I know I'm called to do. I don't have to look a certain way. I don't have to speak a certain way. I don't have to like certain things, because at the end of the day, God created me and he knows who I am. He knows what I like. I can't lie to him about anything. And yet, knowing all of what I like, who I am, and all that, he still picked me and chose me to do what he's called me to do. And so if God accepts me, if God still called me, if God is still wanting to use me, then who am I to try to change it to appease people, right? Who am I to tell him that he made a mistake and they're telling me that I have to do it this way, even though I know that you're telling me it's okay to do it this way? Like, he is the creator. Like, he put us here. He gave us everything that we have. And so I had to get to the point of where I'm like, okay, I don't look like what you've told me I had to look like, but now I'm seeing that I don't have to, and I can still operate looking how I look. And what's so dope about God is that he surrounded me with people who don't quote unquote look like what I have been accustomed to people having to look like. And I saw how he still used them and how they're still being powerful and they're still operating not only within the four walls of the church, but they do stuff way outside of it. They're in the community, they're in the marketplace. Like, they are bosses and entrepreneurs and, influencers and all of this outside of the four walls. And they're still ministering. People's lives are still being changed. They're still seeing Jesus. They're still being introduced to Jesus outside of the four walls in people's authentic personalities, in their authentic spaces, in their authentic lanes. And so one thing that really changed me, that impacted me, I probably will never forget, Dr. Matthew Stevenson said one time I went to a conference, a World Changers conference, and he said, I'm called to Monday. And that blew my mind, because my viewpoint of ministry was only on Sunday, inside the wall, talking to people who supposedly already are supposed to know Jesus. So when he said, I'm called to Monday and I'm going to minister on my job, or I'm going to minister in my business, or I'm going to minister at Walmart, or, you know what I'm saying, just outside. And I knew about evangelism. So I'm not saying that because I was on the evangelism team. But there's one thing about evangelizing, and then there's another thing about my pulpit, or my pulpit being marketplace, or my pulpit being in a creative space, podcast, YouTube, right? Shirts. That is my pulpit. And I had never thought about it previous to him saying that, but God knew that I needed that exposure to expand my thinking, so that I wasn't so concerned about, oh, I'm missing it because now I don't fit in this box and I don't know where I fit. That was the thing. I didn't know where I fit. Me being me and me figuring out how to be authentically me caused me now to not know where I fit in this whole ministering thing. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to be behind a mic on the pulpit on a Sunday, shaking it, tuning up, with a band behind me. Like, I don't see that happening. Me being, since then I have locks, I have piercings, I have tattoos, right? Like, I wear pants, all this type of stuff. I didn't see how any of what I had seen in previous seasons, how to apply that here. And so when my mind expanded into other areas where I can be effective, I started a business, right? And from the business came the book that I wrote that's going to be coming out, came my podcast, came YouTube, came my Facebook group, came the countless interviews I've done, the countless workshops I've taught, just emails I've sent out, information I've put out. All of that came from me understanding that ministry expands beyond the four walls. And if I had been frustrated in who I was and stayed in the fact that being me is hard and just been like, forget it, I don't want to do anything, which is a space where I was for a while. I would say I was in that space for about 2 years. I'm like, I don't want to do nothing. I just don't want to do anything. I don't know where I fit. I don't know how this looks. I don't know how this works. I'm just not going to do nothing. Had I stayed there, I would not be where I am now, right? I wouldn't be fully confident and comfortable in operating in the space that he gave me. And so when I say be you, sis, they'll adjust, they will. But they can't adjust until you do, because you give off whatever you're feeling. So if you're not feeling confident, people are just going to try to tell you and shape you who you are, which is what they did to me. People for years tried to tell me who I was, what I should be doing, what I should look like, they told me, and because I wasn't set on who I was, I just went with it. Like, okay, that's what I like. Okay, that's what I want to do. Okay, that's where I want to be. And I was the chameleon. And that was not what God was asking me to do. So I think this one might be shorter, but that's okay. My admonishment is for you, sis, to just be you. They'll adjust because the world needs you in your authentic being, in you being completely confident and comfortable in who you are and what you do and what you're called to do in your lane, in your space, whatever that looks like, be it traditional or non-traditional. Because sometimes we try to make traditional people feel like they're doing too much. But if you're doing you, and your version of you is, buns and skirts and all of that, like, don't let people make you feel like you're doing too much, because sometimes we can be religiously non-religious, where we make people feel like they doing too much or they're not doing enough when people are just doing them, period. So wherever you fall on the spectrum, if you're more closer to me, or if you're on the other side where you're more, quote unquote traditional, sis, be you, period. Nobody can tell you if you're doing too much or not enough or anything. You have a relationship with Holy Spirit. You know what he tells you to do. And so just do that and be confident and rock with it, because at the end of the day, you are the one by yourself with your thoughts, knowing what you're supposed to be doing, and you are the only one who's going to be held accountable as to whether or not you did what you're supposed to do while you were here. So be you, they'll adjust, and that's all I have for you. So thank y'all so much for listening. If you are on the podcast, be sure to subscribe and to share it and leave a 5-star review. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave a comment and share it as well. All of my links on how to connect with me are in the show notes or in the description box. That's all I have for y'all. Thank you so much. I'll see y'all on the next episode.